The fire is almost dead. Outside, wind tears across the frozen steppe hard enough to erase footprints in minutes. There are no trees nearby, no brick walls, no furnace behind a switch. Inside a shelter built from animal skin and mammoth bones, a family listens as the final fuel cracks apart. If the flame dies, the shelter cools. If the shelter cools, the youngest child may not wake up. So an adult reaches beside the hearth and throws something into the fire. Not wood, bone. Fat trapped inside begins to burn. The flame rises again. This was Ice Age survival. Ancient humans built homes from skeletons, wore several animals at once, buried food inside frozen earth, and burned the dead when forests disappeared. They learned to live where one mistake could freeze an entire family before sunrise. On the open plains of Ice Age Europe, caves were not always available, and timber could be scarce. So ancient builders used the largest material they could find: mammoths. Across Eastern Europe, archaeologists have uncovered circles of skulls, jaws, ribs, shoulder blades, and enormous tusks. A mammoth skull could weigh more than a person. Tusks had to be dragged and positioned. Smaller bones filled gaps. Hides were likely stretched across the framework, forming a low dome that trapped warmth. From a distance, it may have looked like a dark mound in the snow. Up close, it was a house made from giants. The animal fed the group. Then its body became the building that protected them. But the strongest shelter was useless if nobody could step outside. And that required an invention small enough to hold between two fingers. A fur thrown over the shoulders looks warm in a painting. In real wind, it is almost worthless. Cold air enters every opening. Snow reaches the skin. Loose material shifts. To hunt in extreme cold, humans needed clothing that behaved like a second body. So they cut hides into shapes and stitched them together. Bone needles found at Paleolithic sites show remarkable precision. With them, people could make sleeves, leggings, boots, hoods, and layered clothing. Inner layers trapped warm air. Outer hides blocked wind and moisture. Dry grass could be packed into footwear. Thousands of years before synthetic insulation, humans were already using the principle behind a modern winter jacket. Different layers doing different jobs. The most important Ice Age weapon may not have been the spear. It may have been the needle. A spear killed an animal. A needle allowed humans to follow that animal into places an unprotected body could never survive. But clothing and shelter created another danger. Seal a space too tightly and smoke fills it. Moisture freezes on the walls. Insulation turns to ice. A warm shelter could destroy itself from within. Breathing, cooking, and drying clothing all release moisture. In severe cold, that moisture freezes and damages insulation. Ancient humans learned through consequences. A badly placed opening filled the shelter with smoke. A sealed roof became wet. An entrance facing the wind drained heat. So coverings and openings were adjusted. Smoke and warm air escaped above while cooler air entered below. The shelter was never finished. Every storm tested it. Every tear mattered. A loose hide sounded minor in daylight. At midnight, with snow forcing through the gap, it became an emergency. And then there was fire, because knowing how to create flame meant nothing when the landscape had almost nothing to burn. Wood is the fuel modern people expect. But many Ice Age landscapes were cold, dry, and nearly treeless, so people used what the land gave them: dry grass, shrubs, animal dung, and bone. Bone does not burn like a branch, but pieces containing fat and marrow, mixed with other fuel, could produce slow heat. The animal kept serving the group after its meat was gone. Skin became clothing. Sinew became thread. Bone became tools, shelter, and fuel. Nothing useful was wasted. Embers may also have been guarded and carried between camps, because preserving a coal was easier than creating fire again in freezing wind. Fire cooked food, dried clothing, frightened predators, and created a safe circle in the darkness. If this is changing how you picture ancient humans, hit the like button and subscribe. We uncover stories like this every week. And keep watching, because the next method turned one successful hunt into survival for an entire season. Cold preserved food, but only when people controlled it. Leave meat exposed and scavengers found it. Keep it inside the shelter, and the smell attracted predators. Frozen ground offered another option. In permafrost regions, pits and underground chambers could work like natural freezers. Meat stored below remained cold, hidden, and available through winter. A mammoth was not simply dinner, it could provide weeks of meat, fat, hide, sinew, bone, and fuel. Fat was especially valuable. In extreme cold, the body burns enormous energy just to remain warm. Ancient hunters were not merely chasing food, they were chasing stored heat. None of this could begin after the first snowfall. Shelter, clothing, fuel, and food stores had to be prepared earlier. Winter was survived months in advance. But the most powerful survival method was not made from fur, bone, or fire. It was made from other people. One person alone had almost no margin for error. Someone watched the fire. Someone repaired clothing. Someone processed meat. Someone cared for children. Someone remembered where animals traveled and where fuel had been found. Knowledge was spread across the group. A hunter could become injured. An older person might no longer chase prey, but could remember storms, migration routes, and failed camps. Experience became equipment. At night, people gathered around the hearth. Bodies shared warmth. Children remained close to heat. Stories carried information forward. Where the herds moved, which ice could break, what signs meant a storm was coming. The campfire was not only entertainment, it was a library that could speak. No individual had to know or do everything alone. The Ice Age did not reward strength by itself. A powerful person could still freeze. A skilled hunter could still starve. A family could disappear after one damaged shelter, one lost flame, or one badly timed storm. Survival belonged to the people who prepared. They stitched clothing before cold arrived, stored food before hunger began, repaired shelter before the wind changed, protected embers before darkness fell. They built homes from the bones of extinct giants. They wore animals as armor against the atmosphere. They burned remains, buried food in frozen earth, and passed life-saving knowledge through stories beside the fire. None of it was primitive. It was engineering created under the harshest deadline imaginable. Get it right, or your family does not see spring. So do not picture an Ice Age human helplessly shivering inside a cave. Picture a builder tightening hide over mammoth tusks as a storm approaches. Picture a mother sewing a fur boot with a bone needle. Picture someone feeding the bones of yesterday's hunt into a dying flame so a child can survive one more night. They did not wait for the cold to show mercy. They became more intelligent than the environment was cruel. Hit the like button if this changed how you see ancient humans. Share this with someone who would never expect prehistoric survival to be this advanced, and subscribe for more cinematic stories from the hidden side of history. Then comment below, which survival method surprised you most? Because long before humans controlled the planet, they first had to survive a world that seemed determined to erase them.